The city of New York glittered beneath a blanket of rain, its towering skyscrapers reflecting millions of lights across the wet streets. To the world, the Sterling family represented power, wealth, and perfection. They owned banks, media companies, luxury hotels, and politicians who answered only to them. Their empire had stood untouched for generations. But every empire hides secrets, and every secret eventually demands a price. A black luxury sedan rolled silently through the rain before stopping outside Sterling Tower. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. A woman emerged. She wore a long black coat that flowed in the wind like a shadow. Her face was calm, her eyes cold, and every movement carried the confidence of someone who feared nothing. Her name was Victoria Hale. 10 years earlier, she had been a frightened 16-year-old girl who watched her parents die in a fire that the police called an accident. It wasn't an accident. The Sterling family had ordered the murders after Victoria's father refused to hand over a revolutionary technology that could expose billions of dollars in financial crimes. Every witness disappeared. Every document was destroyed. Every newspaper was paid to stay silent. Only one survivor remained. Victoria. She escaped that night with nothing but a burned photograph of her family and a promise whispered through tears. One day, I'll make them lose everything. For 10 years, she vanished from the world. While the Sterlings celebrated their victories, Victoria rebuilt herself in silence. She studied law, finance, cybersecurity, psychology, and combat. She learned how billionaires protected their fortunes and how powerful families destroyed their enemies. Most importantly, she learned how to destroy them from the inside. Now she had returned, not as a victim, not as a witness, but as the architect of their downfall. Inside Sterling Tower, the family gathered for the annual shareholders meeting. Reporters crowded the entrance, investors filled the conference hall, and security guarded every floor. None of them noticed Victoria entering with a forged executive pass. She wasn't carrying a weapon. She didn't need one. The real weapon was hidden inside a small flash drive in her pocket. One click. That was all it would take. One click would expose decades of corruption, secret offshore accounts, political bribery, and murder. The Sterling Empire wasn't about to be attacked from the outside. It was about to collapse from within. Victoria stepped into the elevator and smiled for the first time in 10 years. "Welcome to the beginning of your end," she whispered. The elevator doors closed, and the countdown to revenge began. The elevator climbed silently toward the top floor of Sterling Tower. With every passing second, Victoria Hale moved closer to the people who had destroyed her family. She stood perfectly still, watching the glowing numbers above the doors. 42, 43, 44. Her heartbeat never changed. 10 years of preparation had taught her one lesson. Revenge belonged to the patient. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Polished marble reflected the crystal chandeliers above. Expensive paintings lined the walls, each worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. Employees hurried through the corridors, unaware that history was about to change. Victoria adjusted her black coat and walked confidently toward the boardroom. No one questioned her. Confidence was the greatest disguise. Inside the massive conference hall, the Sterling family sat around a long glass table. At the head sat Richard Sterling, the ruthless billionaire who had ruled the empire for over 30
Ethan
years. Sterling, the ambitious heir who believed the company already belonged to him. Sophia Sterling, the brilliant strategist who trusted no one. And Marcus Sterling, whose violent temper had buried countless secrets beneath fear and money. Around them sat investors, lawyers, government officials, and journalists. Richard stood to begin the meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced proudly, "today marks another year of record-breaking success for Sterling Global." Applause filled the room.
Victoria smiled.
They were celebrating. Moments before their nightmare began, she quietly connected a tiny wireless device beneath the conference table. A small green light flashed once. The system was now inside Sterling Global's private network. Exactly as planned. Miles away, in an abandoned warehouse converted into a secret operations center, a young hacker named Noah watched dozens of computer screens. "Connection established," he whispered. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Encrypted files began flowing into Victoria's hidden servers. Financial records, secret contracts, bribery payments, evidence of blackmail. Every stolen document brought the Sterling Empire one step closer to destruction. Back inside the boardroom, Richard continued speaking without realizing his life's work was being stolen before his eyes. Then, a security officer entered the room. He leaned toward Richard and whispered something into his ear. Richard's smile disappeared. "Our internal network has detected unusual activity," the guard said quietly. "For now, we believe it's only a minor technical issue." Victoria lowered her eyes to hide a smile. It wasn't a technical issue. It was the beginning of a war. Richard looked around the room. "Lock every server. No one leaves this floor." The doors clicked shut. Sterling had made one fatal mistake. He believed the enemy was trapped inside the building. He had no idea. The enemy had planned every second of this day for 10 long years. The heavy doors of the boardroom locked with a sharp metallic click. Silence spread across the room. Executives exchanged nervous glances while security officers quickly took positions near every exit. Richard Sterling's expression hardened. "No one leaves until we find whoever breached our system." His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the anger beneath it. Victoria remained seated near the back of the room, her face completely emotionless. She had expected this. In fact, she wanted it. One of the security officers began checking every employee's identification card. Another searched laptops and briefcases. The room grew more tense with every passing minute. Meanwhile, far away inside the hidden warehouse, Noah continued downloading Sterling Global's secret files. 35% complete, he whispered. "Hurry," Victoria thought. Suddenly, Sophia Sterling noticed something unusual. She looked directly at Victoria. "I don't recognize her." The room became silent. Richard slowly turned toward the mysterious woman. "And you are?"
Victoria stood confidently.
She handed Richard a forged executive identification card. "My name is Victoria Hayes. I was hired by your European investment division." Richard studied the card for several seconds. Everything looked genuine. He handed it back without another word. But Sophia wasn't convinced. She watched Victoria carefully. There was something familiar about her eyes. Something she couldn't explain. Before she could speak again, every screen inside the boardroom suddenly went black. The lights flickered. Then, A single sentence appeared on every monitor in bright red letters.
Room erupted
Every
into panic.
empire falls. What is this? Who hacked our system? Disconnect everything. Richard slammed his fist onto the table. Find them. At that exact moment, Noah smiled as the download reached 100%. Transfer complete. He pressed one final key. Every copied file disappeared from Sterling Global servers, leaving behind only empty folders and confusion. Victoria quietly slipped her wireless device into her pocket. Her mission was complete. As alarms echoed throughout Sterling Tower, she walked calmly toward the emergency staircase. No one stopped her. Everyone was too busy chasing a ghost. When she reached the street outside, the rain had begun once again. Victoria looked up at the towering building behind her. For decades, the Sterling family believed they were untouchable. Today, they had suffered their first defeat. It would not be their last. Across the city, Noah's phone buzzed. A single message appeared on the screen. Phase 1, complete. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. The morning headlines exploded across every news channel. Sterling Global suffers massive cyber breach. Reporters gathered outside Sterling Tower, firing questions at company officials. Investors flooded the phone lines, demanding answers. The company stock began to fall as rumors spread across the financial world. Inside the executive boardroom, the atmosphere was deadly silent. Richard Sterling stared at the security report lying on the table. They stole 20 years of confidential files. The chief of security said nervously, "We still don't know how they entered the system." Richard's face remained cold. "I don't care how they entered. I want to know who did it." Across the table, Sophia Sterling was studying the surveillance footage frame by frame. She paused the video. There, a mysterious woman in the black coat appeared for only 3 seconds before disappearing into the crowd. Sophia zoomed in on her face. Something felt strangely familiar. "I've seen those eyes before," she whispered. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Victoria stood inside a hidden apartment overlooking the skyline. A wall-sized digital screen displayed dozens of confidential Sterling files, bank records, secret contracts,
Political bribes.
illegal business deals. Every file was another weapon. Noah entered the room carrying a cup of coffee. "We're making headlines everywhere," he said with a grin. Victoria didn't smile. This was only the introduction. She opened another encrypted folder. Inside were photographs from 10 years earlier. One image showed a burning house. Another showed 2 bodies covered with white sheets. The last photograph showed a frightened 16-year-old girl standing alone in the rain. Victoria closed the folder. "They took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from them." At that same moment, Richard received an anonymous package. There was no return address, only a small black envelope. Inside was a single burned family photograph. On the back, written in dark ink, were 6 chilling words. "Do you remember the Hale family?" Richard's hands began to shake. For the first time in decades, the most powerful man in the city looked afraid. Far away, Victoria watched the sun rise through the apartment window. "The game is over," she whispered. "The hunt has begun."